Jalen Milroe was almost like a Heisman finalist type guy last year. He was right on the precipice. What happens if this new coaching staff actually does take his game to the next level? Jalen Milroe is a very interesting player because you've seen him as a starter for like a year now, and you kind of think the book's written on him. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But he gets a guy that just totally resurrected Michael Penix's career up at Washington as his head coach now, as the developer of his offensive skill set now. So, Michael Penix, how many of you remember what his profile was when he was at Indiana? Of course, everyone remembers what he was with Washington. Can you imagine telling anyone when that kid was at Indiana, oh, that dude's going to be a high-level draft pick one day? That guy is going to take a team to a national championship game one day. That kid's going to be in the mix for all the individual awards. You would have looked at him at Indiana and said, first off, he can't even stay on the field. He's injury prone, but even when he is, he's not really a full quarterback. Like, he's a runner who can throw. And Kalen DeBoer turned that guy into like a full-on assault weapon through the air, and you saw what their offense did last year. So what if he does something along those lines with Jalen Milroe? I don't think many people watched Milroe last year and said, boy, that guy, in terms of his presence and his ability to process and read defenses and just go completely eviscerate secondaries, that's not how you talked about Jalen Milroe. Huge arm, dynamic with his legs, but you talk about him, different body type and all that notwithstanding, you talk about him right now as sort of a rich man's version of the way people used to talk about Penix at Indiana. Well, what happens if all of a sudden you turn on maybe October, November, and you're looking at Jalen Milroe and go, whoa, dude, this dude's way different caliber passer than he was last year? Well, what happens is Alabama's probably in the mix for doing some of the same things that they did when the Nick Saban was there. And I know the initial take when DeBoer got in Tuscaloosa was, oh, he won't be able to recruit. Well, now they're recruiting, so now the backup has to be, if you're a Bama hater out there, well, they're going to take a step back personnel-wise. Maybe they're not on the level of Ohio State or Georgia this year. But the thing about it is Washington wasn't either last year. Washington didn't have a poverty roster by any stretch. But, I mean, Washington versus Texas in that semifinal game, let's be real now. Who had the more talented roster? And who ended up running circles around who? Or whomst ended up running circles around whomst. So DeBoer comes in and gets way better running back talent than he had last year and gets a quarterback with a moldable skill set. Who knows which of those wide receivers will develop and then blossom this year that were underutilized. It's all at the feet of that quarterback. And I mean, I think they've got guys for the future, but I'm not talking about the future. I'm talking about Bama 2024. I expect it to happen. I expect his play to elevate. I expect his ability as a passer to elevate. And maybe it would have happened if Saban were still there and Tommy Rees was his offensive coordinator. That's reasonable. Whatever his maximum ability is this year as a passer, though, I think it's reasonable to expect it from DeBoer and his staff because they've earned that benefit of the doubt.